welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ryan Dafamia, and I invite you to go through a journey with me as I seek to learn and discover new things through interesting and exciting conversations with some of our guests from the cyber community. We'll cover everything cyber from the latest news, technologies, best practices, and the everyday life of a humble cybersecurity professional. I hope you enjoy the show, but before we get started, here are some quick and important notes. The opinions and statements shared by our host and guest are of their own and not the organizations they work for or work with. The show discusses and explores ideas on how to better manage cybersecurity risks at a very high level. We'll often talk about solutions and products to mitigate cybersecurity risks. Please note that these are meant to be general advice only. Always consult with professionals before considering any solutions we discuss on the show. That's it. Now let's get started with the show. You're all set up? We can start?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, 3, 2, 1. We're live. Mr. Loris, how are you, sir?
G'day, Ryan. I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. It's Friday, so I'm always good on a
Yes.
Friday. I don't know about you.
Happy it's Friday, yes. Looking forward to the weekend.
Excellent.
The craziness of family life kicks in.
Anything exciting you're working on at the moment? Other than running a massive company?
Project? No, just as a side project is just taking care of my own health and, well-being.
Good.
Sometimes we forget about that. So yeah, trying to hit the gym as much as possible. Go for runs and all that stuff. Yeah.
Good on you. I did notice that too. Like probably past 2 years. Your working group, your peers, all the topic has shifted from what do you drink to what are you doing right now for your health? Like, I go for runs. I'm doing intermittent fasting. The topics have shifted from whatever the cool gadgets to now like
we all become doctors, yeah, because there's so much good information out there, so everyone can do their own research and see what works for them. So yeah.
It's definitely good. It's definitely good. Like the internet has helped a lot of people. Like it just opened opportunities to, other people who never thought that they could do things. But yeah. Anyway, let's talk business. Well, first of all, I should have started with this. Thank you for jumping in. I appreciate it. So
Pleasure.
the goal really with the podcast is, and for everybody who's listening, is it's all about knowledge sharing, right? So this is very informal. And that's how I want to keep it. It's all about knowledge sharing. I want to talk to people who's actually on the ground, who does the work, helps customer with their cybersecurity requirements, helping them with their, detect and response situations. So yeah, so thanks for coming in. Maybe we can start by giving everybody a bit of background. Who's Mr. Loris Minassian? Let's go.
So background about myself, I've been in the cybersecurity industry probably about 24 plus years, heavily focused in the managed security services space, threat detection, incident response, threat intelligence, running a security operations center, as you know, for many, many years.
And maybe just to quickly interrupt you, that full disclosure, Loris was my boss in 2015, so full disclosure.
About boss.
No, good.
Yeah, we work together. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, we had a really good team, and everyone contributed. But yeah, I mean, with regards to my existing experiences, with regards to running a managed security service business, understanding how to operationalize a SOC and go to market and all those things. So yeah, and effectively during that time, I got to see a lot of environments, whether it was a banking environments, whether it's healthcare or commercial
Public
type
sector
businesses. Yeah, and I've got to learn a lot. Many times, many organizations do similar things with regards to their security practice. You find a lot of commonality, but regardless of that, we're all facing similar threats. So I got to learn about that, and following my last post at NTT security, I I started to think about what I can do that's new, that's innovative, that would really reduce exposure for organizations, something that they're not already doing, something that they don't get out of their, I guess, existing controls, whether it is next gen firewalls or EDR solutions. What
Yeah.
can I do to fill that gap? So yeah, I started thinking about that and started a new business called CyberStash, as you know, which is my current business. I'm the founder. And with that, started developing a cyber defense platform, which we launched at the end of last year. It's called Eclipse.xdr. As the name states, it's an extended detection and response capability. And with that, yeah, we've, of course, helping organizations do a number of things, reduce the exposure in a significant way.
Yep.
So, I'm not talking in the factors of tens or 20 or even hundreds, but, in factors of 1,000. So the highest priority is to try to avoid breaches. So trying to do that. And
Yep.
of course, to validate environments as being clean every day, not trust technology, but to validate and audit environments positively. And we use forensics for that.
Yep.
And as much as possible, automate the whole thing to reduce the resource demands on resources.
Yeah, I was checking your website. I feel like when I was reading it, it felt like the key takeaway there is the product itself is very, I wouldn't say self-sufficient, right? But it automates a lot of the stuff. So it's really a force multiplier, right? So if you, for example, if you're an organization, you're not quite sure yet if you're going to outsource the SOC or if you want to just build one for yourself, it it felt like the product would be a good start for someone who wants to actually, what, I'll hire a bunch of I'll hire 3 SOC analysts and give this a go, see if I can run it in house. Is that a
Yeah,
use case that you've got that we've seen? Yeah.
it's the third use case we've got for the platform, which is automation,
Yeah.
and that comes from running MSS business, knowing how much security analysts and security engineers cost,
Yeah.
and you can't just keep adding security analysts, security engineers to your team, right? You got to try to help them and reduce their workload to try to give them the information they need so they can make the decisions, or even to help make that decision for them and with the response actions and so on. So that's the background that I had, and that's what went into the platform.
Mm.
So instead of needing 6, 7 security analysts, half a FTE is plenty to run our platform and to do what 6, 7 analysts would do with a security like with a SIEM platform or something like that.
Yeah. You mentioned SIM. It's I can't remember when did the industry just sort of transition from this is the SIM and this is all we need, from having EDR now to XDR, MDR. There's even
Yeah,
NDR. So, and I feel like it's a natural progression, right? So SIM is very,
that's true. There's different use cases for each
yeah,
product, I guess. But the good thing about XDR, the X is not really defined, um, and everyone
it's
defines
more
every
about the
vendor.
outcome. Yeah.
It's the outcome, it's the extended outcome, and what you're trying to achieve. So I hope it never gets defined, to be honest, because that allows us to really continue maturing the XDR capabilities and the automation it brings together, make it easier for the SOC teams and security analysts, and to produce that outcome for the business anyway, which is risk
For the
reduction at the end of the
customers,
day.
right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
the customers now are getting bombarded with all of these terminologies, these different tools, and
Mm.
it's easy to get trapped into a specific technology or product or whatever and just go there and go into that ecosystem and get locked into a certain product without actually understanding the outcome. And the outcome really purely is to understand your threat and have the ability to detect and respond to those threats, right? So I
That's
agree,
right. That's right.
keeping it
No,
generic just
hundred
allows for
percent.
that. Yeah.
100%. And many organizations buy technology, they only use, as you know, 10 or 15 or 20% of its capability.
Seen
They
that many
log into
times.
it
Yeah.
once a month, if that. They don't have sometimes the resources or the skills to operate it, especially when there's churn in the company.
Yeah.
So if you're that type of organization who whose primary focus is not to run your own security operations center, then the managed detection and response or the managed XDR type of companies like CyberStash is who you turn to assist with, with helping with that 24/7 monitoring and
Yeah.
hunting and all that stuff. Effectively making sure that you get a good return on your investment continuously. It's not just set and forget.
But quick question, Loris. So that product you're talking about, I don't want to market it too much, but I'm
Yeah,
really just genuinely curious. Like, so when you say it can do the job of 7 analysts, even if you only have 2 analysts, for example, like how can you, very high level, like how does that work? Do you use threat intelligence?
it's
What do
mainly
you use? Yeah.
yeah, that's right. It's really purposing threat intelligence data and using it to enrich and to take response actions in a greater ecosystem, right?
Right.
And once you get confident at using threat intelligence
Yeah.
and not only using it to understand the bad infrastructures, let's just say bad infrastructures, but also to understand the good infrastructures,
Yeah.
then you can use that data to more confidently apply, let's say, aggressive blocking actions in a more confident way where you would not do it, in a past life.
Sorry,
If you
your
did,
tool
you
can
could,
block stuff too, just to
of
confirm.
course, of
Ah, okay,
course, of
cool.
So our XDR platform, it's a protection, provides
Yeah.
protection, reduces your exposure in a significant way, as I said. It does the automated threat hunting and incident response, or what we say continuous response. So all that comes together. It's got EDR, it's got SIM, it's got SOAR, it's got network capability on the network, perimeter, and threat intelligence to empower the whole lot. So that's in a nutshell the platform. But the threat intelligence is what really drives the whole thing.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because the logic is already done today. What you're just doing is you're compressing all of these capabilities in one box, right? Because today, yeah, if I create a SOC today, that's one of the key requirements that I'll have. Okay, I'll have a way to correlate logs, but I also need to have a way to use high confidence signals like, okay, this is definitely an IP or whatever it is,
Mhm.
indicators of compromise that is confirmed. I, it, right
Yeah,
away, I'll
yeah.
prioritize it, right? No
Once
need
you
to
know something's
triage.
bad,
Yeah.
then it's easy from there. The response is easy as long as you can do it at scale.
Now,
So if you're using manual processes, you're never going to reduce risk
and
at
we've
a
seen that in the past when we
yeah.
manually do things.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're talking about using threat intelligence at scale, it means being able to do it at the. It needs to make sense to the conversation of risk reduction, right? So
Yeah.
you got to be blocking not in the hundreds of thousands, not in the millions, but you got to be blocking in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of indicators. That's the scale we're talking about.
Yep. Yep. No, totally. That makes sense. And you mentioned about automation, like from an automation front, what parts, what functions does it automate? Like, is it the triage that it automates, or?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to threat intelligence, there's different types of threat intel, right? So we need
Yep.
to first of all distinguish the types. So the threat intelligence you get or you gather for, let's say, prioritizing remediation
Mm,
of remediation of vulnerabilities and so on is very different to the type of threat intelligence we work with, which is the TTPs and the IOCs and so on,
yep.
right? So automation, again, if you look at the framework for threat intelligence, where you need to collect the intelligence, you need to aggregate it, you have to enrich it, you have to automate it,
Mm,
right? And then you have to use it for hunting analytics. In each of those stages, the automation plays a big part. So collection, of course, you don't want to collect things manually. You want to set up all the emerging threats that come into all the threat feeds, all the ISCs, all the adversary behaviors to come into your platform automatically.
yep.
Enrichment, of course, that's a no-brainer. You can check other sources and enrich data. Um, with regards to automation, which is a key component of the whole thing, what we're talking about there is automating the response actions.
Right.
There's no, it's no good getting a threat feed or paying for a threat intelligence feed or a threat intelligence platform when you can't operationalize it, when you can't take
You
that
don't know
data and
anything. Yeah.
actively help reduce your exposure, right? So you need to be able to do that at scale.
Yeah.
So if your threat intelligence platform tells you that there's 100,000 IPs or domains or whatever it is that they tell you about that is bad, you need to be able to ensure that that gets into your, goes towards protecting you. It's
Yeah.
not just there to correlate and to flag things, because that's just going to create a big mess for your security analysts. You
What
got
do you
to
do next? Yeah.
actively reduce. Yeah, that's right. And also threat hunting. So there's always a gray area,
Yeah.
right? And there's always an area where you can take those specific technical indicators and then look at the broader view of where they're coming from, the infrastructures that adversaries use, and then run hunting rules or hunting search rules to discover threats that there is no prior intelligence about or specific intelligence about,
Yeah.
right? So this is how you can find new infrastructures that no one knows about yet.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So automation across the whole board. Yeah.
No, no, that's cool. So when you speak, different question, I guess.
Yeah.
So, because you talk to a lot of customers, right? So I'm curious to see if are you seeing any trends around like XDR and MDR? Like what are customers, what are customers looking for right now? What are their pain points? Any trends that you're noticing at the moment?
There's different types of customers, different
Yeah.
maturity level of customers. So some of the XDR use cases are very simple, and they sort of uh, focus around phishing
Yep.
uh, and um, and then assisting the front desk with you know the whole phishing lifecycle and responding to phishing attacks and so on.
Yep.
And if you look at many XDR platforms, that's very central to their what they're actually trying to do.
Yep.
Um, but XDR, as I said, it's not defined. The X is not defined. So different vendors are using their own capability and banking on what they're good at. For example, EDR providers who pivoted to XDR, well, they have strong EDR capability and they're leveraging that and they're extending into the greater ecosystem with potentially a SOAR type of integration.
Right.
You got SIM providers who were not traditionally in the EDR space who have introduced EDR capability. And so everyone's trying to tap into the greater IT ecosystem or tech ecosystem and to bring together analytics, which then will empower XDR.
Yeah.
Right. So traditionally this happens because these types of platforms were not built ground up as an XDR.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
So there's an
bolted on. Yeah.
afterthought. Exactly.
Cool. I wrote another question here that I was curious before I reached out to you. Like and you already spoke about threat intelligence and how it helps XDR platforms. But can you like share obviously don't mention any customers, but like any incident we're in, or not even an incident, like give us an example where the threat intelligence really came in and help with the situation to allow you to actually highlight like, okay, because of this threat intelligence that came in, we were able to pick up something and bring it up the queue and say, this is a genuine threat. Like, is there any example that you can share right now where it really stood out? Like, yeah.
So this happens automatically every minute, every second in the
Right.
platform, right?
Yeah.
So, but any advisory that's released,
Yeah.
right? You got to ask yourself, well, that advisory gives you information, intel about the behaviors, the tactics, and so on, and also the IOCs, right?
Yeah.
You look back into your existing, let's say, protective capabilities of XDR, and you say, well, is it already blocking those things? Is there already defenses against that, the tactics and the IOCs that are released in that advisory? If it is, then you know that intelligence is already playing a good part. For example, when was it? Last week, the Russian, what was it? The Russian military
Mm.
the advisory on the Russian military state actor. Um, I think this was a joint research by CISA, NSA, and FBI, and then this uh, what was it, the ACSC or
Yeah.
the Signals Directorate send out advisories to everyone. So we looked at that and we saw, all right, well, there's a lot of good information in that advisory. And we went back to our platform and we said, well, two things. Are we already protecting against those infrastructures
Yeah.
and those behaviors? And if the answer is yes, then you know that your investment in threat intelligence is already working for you because you're actually in front of the attacker,
Yeah.
right? It's helping you stay ahead of the attack and the attacker and the APT group and so on. Second thing is you can then run another report to say, well, has there been any type of traffic or indicators that correlate with this, IOCs and so on in
Yeah.
environment? And if there is, they should have been blocked if threat intelligence was doing its job, right?
Yeah.
And otherwise, that means things just went out the door without any sort of alarm or alert.
And we've seen that, in the solutions of the past, like 5 years ago, I would normally see like a SIM. We would have some sort of threat intelligence IOC feed, and it would actually flag what, if there are any IP hashes that's been detected in the past. But it's on top of all the noise that you get, it's just kind of hard to actually make sense of it. And like, okay, is it what do I do then with this? I've got MITRE ATT&CK use cases that's telling me that this is happening. But at the same time, you've got a threat intelligence feed coming in saying, okay, this looks benign, but, and your firewall might say it's blocked, but it's attempting to connect to a known IP, a known bad IP. Like, what do you then do? Do you just ignore it? Obviously not, but you have to make sense of it, right? So yeah. All right, I found the question right. So, what do you think is the future with threat intelligence and XDR? Like, you've already obviously spotted the potential for it, and this is why you've invested on the product. So you got now threat intelligence and your XDR product tightly integrated. But what do you see in the future? What could be the version 2.0 of this thing?
Well, like anything, I think AI will play a big part,
Yeah.
and is already playing a big part. And I don't think there'll be a single company out there not, having any cybersecurity platform without AI.
Everybody's using the AI right now.
Everything's
It's
been,
yeah.
and vendors are now sort of scrambling to use AI in a positive way to enhance their capabilities. So as it applies to XDR, I see I see that there's still a room to improve, whereby right now the intelligence that we're getting is gathering from the commercial, open source, government threat feeds, and
Yeah.
so on. But I think AI can use analytics gathered from the environment itself,
Yeah.
and to then predict uh, the types of attacks and adversaries and the infrastructures that are attacking the actual specific organization. Okay, so that's one big part of an improvement I think that needs to come in, and I think AI, and that's I think around the corner. Okay, if right now as a service, what we're doing, which is still a little bit manual, is that we're taking all this information and the analytics that we get from from threat intelligence,
Threat
specific threat
intelligence.
intelligence, and then we are recommending to our clients specific tactical or more strategic blocking capabilities,
Yeah.
right? So that we're trying to get in front of the threat effectively. So next time we're not depending on specific IOCs, right?
Yeah.
I think AI will play a part in making those recommendations for our clients so that our analysts don't have to do it,
Right.
right, in our
Right.
team. So as a client, you'll log into your environment, into our platform, and you'll get those recommendations already, right? Block this infrastructure, this top level domain, for example, is seen as doing bad, but you don't really have any legitimate traffic going to it. Why not block it, right?
Yeah.
So those type of things will come into play. But anyway, I mean, we'll have
Are
to see
you
how it
are you
evolves.
investing on AI now, or it's still in the
We are,
pipeline? Yeah.
we
Okay.
are, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, we're already doing ML on the endpoints. We're already validating things after
Yeah.
forensically finding things. We're using ML to, and ML is a type of AI, but not the natural language part. We're building, and
Yeah.
there's going to be another thing, Ryan, is that these days, you don't have to use the commercial AI.
No.
And there's a lot of open source ones you can build and run in your private environment. So the sharing of the data is that the I guess the risk of sharing your data is not a problem anymore. That's
Yeah.
not a showstopper. Yeah, that shouldn't be a showstopper. All it takes is a good amount of resources.
Yeah.
These CPU resources and so on, effectively to process it, and then today, you know, AI platforms enable you to bring in your data, runs automatic tagging, and finds behaviors automatically.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's much better. We're not going back 5 years. It's come a long way. So
Yeah.
it helps accelerate what you're trying to do, get your use case out quicker.
That's actually a good point, and I feel like
Yeah.
that's why AI is uh an excellent use case for security, because what you can do is you can create your own private instance of your Gen AI and then feed it with your context, your information, because you don't need to know about what this organization is doing anyway, because you're minding your own threat, right? You want
That's
to
own data.
understand your attack surface. So yeah, that's actually a good point. Making it, because you don't need, like, your typical consumer of Gen AI would want to know the whole internet, right? Because I'm asking it random questions. But in this cybersecurity use case, you're using it to understand, to get 5 steps ahead of the attacker. Like, okay,
Yes.
AI, you know my infrastructure, you know my what security controls I've used, you know the incidents that I've had in the past X years. Like with this, and feed it with the latest threats. Like, okay, these are the threats that I'm seeing right now. Give me some threat hunting queries, hypothesis, or maybe detection use cases that I can develop to help
Yeah.
me get ahead of them. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Everything you
Uh,
do, you have to have one aim, which is reduce your exposure. So you got to, and one of the things people don't talk about when we talk about extended detection and response is that taking detection and response into a defense capability. So
yeah,
getting so quick at detection and response where you actually move it to a protective capability. So you're not. So that's one of the extended parts of detection and response, is making it a proactive defense capability rather than detecting, correlating, and
mm,
enriching, and then responding. The detection and response is too high risk of game to play. It's
yeah,
very important
yeah,
to do it, but as the quicker you can move your detection and response capability to a proactive protection capability
yeah.
and control, the
Okay,
better
I'm
it is.
I'm curious on that one, Loris. Can you expand a bit? So when you say protected, I know you mentioned earlier that it does do that. It blocks it, but like, what's the mechanism? Where do you block? How do you block? How does that work?
So this is what you know about everything comes back to traffic, right?
Yeah.
Adversaries need to get access to so IP traffic, DNS traffic. You don't have to go into every single protocol. Everything is going across IP, right? And using the DNS. So as long as you control what goes in and out of your environment, in and out of your endpoints, then the blocking can happen. And this is
Mm,
where we come in. Like, we actually do that blocking at a scale that is significant, to reduce exposure in a massive way. And so it doesn't matter what the threat is, right? The only, whether it's a phishing attack, whether it's a fraud, whether it's an endpoint exploit, whether it's a DDoS, everything has to, at the end of the day, use the network to get to your infrastructure or to your user,
correct.
right? So to control that, it doesn't matter um, if the intelligence you're receiving is about the adversary behavior or the IOCs. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is create rules either on the endpoint to detect adversary behavior, or on the network to block the traffic in and out, right,
Mm,
of those infrastructures. So that's where you need to, I think, you get the biggest bang for your money and investment. But look, this is not something that uh, this is something that mature security programs can run and do.
Yeah.
We talk about AI and that we're going to be all doing all this, but this is not something that a typical organization will invest in, right?
Nah.
You got to be very, very mature to do this. So leveraging services, I think, is the way to go. MDR services or managed XDR service is the way to go.
Yeah, it just lowers the barrier, right? So I can just building an AI tool and then maintaining it and making sure it's configured properly. I
Yeah,
don't even know
yeah,
if you can find enough people right now to do that for you. So let alone run it, right? So yeah, that's a good point. And it's consuming it as an outcome is always better, right? Because
that's right.
if you're not happy, it doesn't align with what your expectations were, then you can easily shift.
That's
Unlike
right.
if you're building it yourself, you already sunk the cost and you're locked into that, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Um, anything else you want to cover?
Not really. I think we've done covered some good ground. So yeah, it's been good.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, thank you very much for jumping in, Loris.
Pleasure,
Appreciate it.
Ryan. Great
Good
catching up
luck.
with you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again. I think we last met each other physically was 2022, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, or even probably longer than that. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it would be good to
Time
catch
for
up
another.
again.
Happy to do so, mate. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Loris. Good luck with the business.
All the best.
Cheers, mate.
Have a good
Bye
day.
bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
All right. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you for listening, and I really hope that you enjoyed the discussion and the topics we covered today. And if you want to hear more of this in the future, then please consider subscribing to the show through YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Again, thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.